At the hospital, my family mocked me for fainting for attention, then posted photos of their perfect family dinner. Months later, they demanded invitations to my wedding. Instead, I walked down the aisle, surrounded only by the people who showed up when I needed them most. Hey, Reddit. My family treated me like I was invisible, so I cut them off and started building a life that actually made me happy. But of course, they couldn't leave it alone. Before I get into the chaos, let me start from the beginning. My name is Heather M. Gill. I'm 32 years old, operations director at a tech startup that's growing too fast for its own good, and the person everyone depends on to keep the wheels turning. I live in a small apartment in the city with Felix, my partner of 3 years. Sharp, grounded, and the only person who's ever told me I work too hard. He's probably right. Family complicated. My parents love the bragging rights, not the check-ins. Ethan, the golden child, gets praised for what I've done quietly. Uncle Frank plays patriarch, keeping a tab of what I owe. Holidays are appearances, so I keep conversations short. Work makes sense. Goals, metrics, results. I'm 3 weeks into the biggest project on 4 hours sleep and coffee, prepping a pitch that could win Redline Tech a multi-million partnership. Close it. Promotion. Miss. Months wasted. Felix has been watching the pressure build. He's been asking me to slow down, to take a night off, to breathe. But slowing down isn't an option. Not now. Not when the board is expecting me to deliver. Take a day off, he said the night before the presentation, standing in the kitchen doorway as I hunched over my laptop. You look like you're about to pass out. I'm fine, I replied without looking up. It was a reflex now, the same lie I told my team, my bosses, and myself. He sighed. Fine is the word people use right before they fall apart. I waved him off with a tired smile. One more day. After tomorrow, I'll sleep for a week. Promise me you'll eat breakfast before the meeting, he said as I buttoned my shirt that morning. I'll grab something on the way, I lied. The conference room felt like a pressure cooker. A dozen investors lined the table, silent and expectant. My slides were flawless, my pitch rehearsed down to the breath. As I started, I felt the familiar rush, the tightrope walk between confidence and collapse. But halfway through, the room shifted. My vision narrowed, my chest felt tight. I pushed through it, answering questions, forcing energy into my voice. My heart pounded harder. The screen blurred. Someone asked for revenue projections, and my mind blanked, and I gripped the edge of the table, willing myself to keep going. Then the floor tilted. The words died in my throat. The last thing I heard before everything went black was Felix's voice in my head, telling me I was pushing too hard. When I opened my eyes, bright white lights filled my vision. An EMT leaned over me, asking questions I couldn't quite process. My body felt heavy, my mouth dry as sand. Ma'am, can you hear me? You collapsed during the presentation, he said. We're taking you to St. Luke's. I tried to sit up, but he pressed me gently back. My chest burned with every breath. Someone handed him my phone. I caught fragments of the conversation. Calling emergency contacts, no answer. The words repeated over and over, no answer. They left 2 voicemails and a text with my intake status. The calls went through. No one picked up. A triage nurse sent a follow-up text marked admitted stable for now. Felix was the first to reach me at the hospital. He had left work the moment he got the call and hadn't left my side since. My parents didn't call. My brother didn't show. Frank didn't even text. You're lucky, the doctor said a few hours later, standing at the foot of the bed. Severe exhaustion and dehydration. Your body's been under too much stress for too long. Keep this up, and next time it won't just be a fainting spell. I nodded, but my attention drifted to my silent phone on the nightstand. Still nothing. Felix brushed my hair back and kissed my forehead. I told you this job would kill you if you let it. Yeah, I whispered. You did. I had built a life on being dependable, the woman who always showed up. But as I lay there, chest aching and head spinning, I realized something I'd spent years avoiding. If I collapsed tomorrow, the people who were supposed to care the most probably wouldn't even notice. The doctor discharged me the next afternoon with a prescription for rest and strict instructions to stop working like I was invincible. Felix took a few days off to keep an eye on me. He stocked the fridge, checked my vitals, and hovered more than he wanted to admit. I told him he didn't need to worry, but I still felt drained, dizzy, and off balance. A reminder that my body had finally drawn a line I couldn't ignore. The strangest part wasn't the weakness. It was the silence. My phone hadn't buzzed once. No missed calls from my parents, no text from Ethan, not even a lazy hope you're okay from Uncle Frank. It was like the collapse never happened. On the second night, curiosity got the better of me. I opened my phone expecting something, anything. There was nothing. What I did find was worse. A tagged photo from La Vala, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. There they were. My parents, Ethan, his wife, Frank, glasses raised, smiling in warm, golden light. The caption under the post hit harder than any diagnosis could, celebrating Ethan's biggest real estate deal yet. Morris legacy, stronger than ever. The timestamp was 8:12 p.m., 2 hours after I'd been admitted to the hospital. Felix read over my shoulder, his expression darkening. "They knew," he said quietly. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. A few minutes later, a message popped up from an unfamiliar number. It was my cousin Hunter. We hadn't spoken in years. He asked if it was real. I snapped a photo of my hospital wristband and sent it to him. "I'm sorry," he wrote back. "You don't deserve that." Before I could type a reply, another message came through, then another. Screenshots, one after another. They were from the Morris family group chat, the same one I'd muted months ago. "She's being dramatic again. We shouldn't ruin dinner over another meltdown. She always bounces back. This will teach her not to play the victim." I stared at the screen until my hands started to shake. Felix looked over and read the messages. His face went pale with anger. "This isn't just neglect," he said. "This is cruelty." "They probably didn't think it was serious," I muttered, though I didn't believe it. Felix shook his head. "Heather, you were unconscious. They didn't even try." Another message came from Hunter. "I thought you should see this. They're pretending you're fine, like none of this matters." "Thanks," I typed back. I guess I needed the reminder. "I get it," he replied. "I stopped talking to them years ago. Same story every time. They mock you when you struggle, ignore you when you succeed. It's easier to disappear. And one more thing, I told Grandma what happened. She's furious. She wanted to come see you, but you were already discharged by the time I spoke to her." I remembered Hunter always being distant at family gatherings. Quiet, detached. He was labeled the disappointment, the one who never lived up to his potential. Maybe that was just another way they dismissed someone they couldn't control. He later told me the family chat lit up right after my dad listened to the hospital voicemail. They knew before the appetizers. The next afternoon, Hunter showed up at my apartment with 2 coffees. He looked hesitant, standing at the door, like he wasn't sure I'd let him in. "I didn't know if you'd want to talk," he said, "but I needed to say this face to face." We sat at the kitchen table. He told me how he'd stopped trying to earn their approval years ago. Every achievement was diminished. Every failure was magnified. He realized the only way to win was to stop playing the game. When I saw those messages, Hunter said, "It pissed me off more than I expected. I thought I was numb to their garbage, but watching them mock you after you collapse, that's different. That's evil." I didn't have an answer. I just sat there letting the truth sink in. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was a choice, a deliberate decision to treat me as an afterthought, even in an emergency. Felix joined us at the table. "You don't have to keep them in your life," he said. "People like that don't change. They don't wake up one day and become decent." Hunter nodded. "He's right. I cut contact 5 years ago. Best decision I ever made." I didn't respond. I wasn't ready to make declarations or decisions, but I knew something had shifted. The illusion I'd clung to, that maybe deep down they cared, was gone. After Hunter left, Felix sat beside me on the couch. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That this is probably who they've always been," I said. "I just didn't want to see it." "Now you do," he replied. I picked up my phone one last time and opened the family group chat. The string of unread messages looked meaningless now. Years of small talk and empty words. With a single swipe, I deleted it. It was a small act, barely more than a gesture, but it felt like a start, a first quiet step away from people who could watch me fall and never think to reach out a hand. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because I felt at peace, but because the truth, ugly, painful, and undeniable, had finally settled. And once you see the truth, you can't go back to pretending. A week passed, and the silence from my family didn't break. No calls, no texts, no awkward check-ins pretending they cared. I'd stopped expecting anything, but the emptiness still stung. It was like they had quietly agreed I didn't exist. Then, one Thursday morning, everything shifted. I was at the kitchen table with Felix, scrolling through work emails I didn't care about, when my phone started buzzing nonstop. Notifications stacked on top of each other. "What's going on?" Felix asked. I opened the first notification and froze. It was a link to a social media post, Hunter's post. He had shared the screenshots of the family group chat, the ones showing their comments about my collapse. Alongside them was the photo of my hospital wristband I'd texted him from the ER, the date and time circled in red. The caption was simple but devastating. My cousin Heather ended up in the ER after collapsing at work. The family ignored every emergency call and mocked her in a group chat. If this is what family means, I want nothing to do with it. The post wasn't viral in the sensational sense. No national headlines, no celebrity retweets, but it was spreading fast through mutual circles. Dozens of people shared it within hours. By the afternoon, it had shown up in local business groups, extended family circles, and even a few professional forums. The comments were brutal. "This is beyond toxic. I'm so sorry you went through this. Family doesn't mean anything if they don't show up. I cut my parents off for less." By lunchtime, my inbox was full. Former classmates reached out to check in. A manager from a previous job sent a message offering support. Even my current CEO texted, "If you need time off or flexibility, take it. Family trauma is no joke." Felix scrolled through the reactions on his phone. "People are furious," he said, and honestly, they should be. I sat there reading comment after comment, unsure what to feel. I hadn't asked Hunter to post any of it. I hadn't even told him to share the screenshots. But now that the truth was out, it was like a pressure valve had been released. I didn't have to defend myself anymore. I didn't have to prove what they'd done. The evidence was public. The fallout started quickly. By Friday, my father was pulled into a meeting at his firm. HR wanted answers about the online accusations. Ethan's latest real estate deal, the one they toasted while I was in the hospital, fell apart. The investors didn't want negative attention. Uncle Frank's local reputation, built on charity boards and business circles, took a hit as people quietly stopped inviting him to events. The family group chat, which Hunter still had access to, was a storm of anger and blame. "She's ruining everything. We could sue for defamation. She's jealous of Ethan. Always has been. She'll regret this. Watch." What none of them said, not once, was, "We should have been there." They didn't mention the ignored calls or the hospital. They focused only on how they looked. "They're not upset about what they did," Felix said after reading a screenshot Hunter sent. "They're upset because people finally see it." He was right. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to respond. I didn't want to explain myself or try to fix it. I'd spent most of my life absorbing their excuses. Now, the world had seen who they were, and that was punishment enough. The next few days were strange. People I barely knew messaged me stories about their own toxic families. Some offered support. Some said Hunter was a hero for speaking up. My boss asked if I wanted to speak at a company event about burnout and family pressure. I declined. I wasn't interested in turning my pain into content. One night, Hunter called. His voice was calm but hesitant. I hope I didn't cross a line posting all that. "You didn't," I said. "I didn't have the guts to say it myself. You did." "I just couldn't stay quiet," he admitted. "I've watched them do this to you for years. They think they're untouchable. I wanted them to see what the rest of us see." "Thank you," I said simply, and I meant it. The Morris family had spent decades crafting a polished image, hardworking, respectable, united. It had always been a lie. Now the cracks were visible to everyone. The people who once admired them were whispering. Clients were asking questions. Old friends were backing away. And through it all, I stayed silent. I didn't post anything. I didn't reply to their angry messages. I didn't defend or explain. The truth was doing all the work. On Sunday night, Felix and I sat on the couch scrolling through the latest reactions. Most people weren't just talking about me anymore. They were talking about patterns like mine: abandonment, neglect, families that weaponize silence. My story had become a mirror for theirs. "They built this mess," Felix said, handing me his phone, "and for once, they have to live in it." He was right. I had spent my entire life cleaning up after them, smoothing over their mistakes, downplaying the damage. This time, I wasn't going to lift a finger. The knock on the door came on a gray Sunday afternoon, hard, deliberate, and angry. Felix glanced through the peephole and gave me a look that said everything. "It's them," he whispered. "All of them." I opened the door, and there they were. My father, red-faced and fuming. My mother, lips pressed into a tight line, Ethan, leaning against the doorframe with a smug grin, and Uncle Frank, pacing like a lawyer preparing for trial. They didn't wait to be invited. They pushed past me, storming into my apartment like they still had authority over my life. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" my father barked before I could speak. "You've humiliated this family." "Humiliated?" I asked calmly. "For screenshots I didn't even post." "Don't play innocent," Frank snapped. "We know you put Hunter up to it. All those lies, that sob story, you're destroying our reputations." "They're not lies," Felix cut in, stepping forward. "Everything in those screenshots is real. I read them myself." Frank turned on him immediately. "This is family business. Stay out of it." "I am family," Felix said evenly, "and I'm not going anywhere." My mother crossed her arms. "We raised you. We gave you everything. And this is how you repay us? By airing our private conversations to the entire world?" "You didn't give me everything," I replied. "You didn't even answer the phone when the hospital called." My father scoffed. "We were told you were stable. You were fine." "I was unconscious," I said. "I woke up alone. No calls, no visits, not even a text. That's not fine. That's abandonment." "Stop acting like a victim," Ethan chimed in, voice dripping with contempt. "You fainted. People faint all the time. But you saw a chance to make us look like monsters, and you took it." "You did that yourselves," Felix shot back. "Enough," my father roared, slamming his fist on the table. "You're going to call Hunter and tell him to delete that post. Then you're going to issue a public apology. Today." "I'm not apologizing," I said. "Yes, you are," my mother insisted, stepping closer, "because this childish rebellion of yours ends now. We don't air dirty laundry in public. We handle things privately, like adults." "Privately?" I asked. "You mean silently. You mean pretending nothing happened, so you can go back to your perfect image." Frank shook his head. "You're lucky you even have a family. Most people would kill for the support you've had." "Support?" I laughed without humor. "You mean the constant criticism, the way you celebrate Ethan for breathing and act like my accomplishments are accidents?" Ethan smirked. "Maybe if you weren't so weak, none of this would have happened. You've always been the problem." Felix's patience snapped. "Weak? She's been the one holding all of you together for years. And the second she needed someone, you were too busy popping champagne." "Watch your tone," Frank barked. "You don't talk to us like that." "Why not?" Felix shot back. "Because you're older? Because you share DNA? Respect is earned, and you haven't earned any." My father pointed a finger at me. "We are your blood. That means something." "It used to," I said. "But blood doesn't mean anything when you treat people like they're disposable." The apartment went silent. Then the door opened again. Grandma Evelyn stepped inside, leaning on her cane with Hunter close behind her. "Good," she said sharply. "I hoped I'd catch you all here." "Mother, you shouldn't be involved in this," my father said. "Be quiet," she snapped, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. "Hunter told me what happened. I called the hospital. I spoke to the staff. And do you know what I found out? Heather was alone. Not one of you showed up. Not one." "That's not fair," my mother protested. "We were told—" "Don't you dare," Evelyn hissed. "I read the messages. I know exactly what you said. She's dramatic. She wants attention. Do you even hear yourselves?" Ethan rolled his eyes. "We didn't mean—" "You meant every word," she snapped. "You're not angry because the truth is out. You're angry because people finally see it." "Mother, this is none of your business," Frank muttered. "It's absolutely my business," Evelyn shot back. "I raised you better than this. You've embarrassed me. Not because of a post, but because of who you've become." She turned to me. "I'm sorry, Heather. You deserve better." No one responded. They just stood there, faces red and twisted with rage, the silence stretching like a rope about to snap. Finally, my father shook his head and started for the door. "This isn't over," he said. "We'll talk when you're ready to be reasonable." "I am being reasonable," I replied, "and I'm done." Frank's voice was low and venomous. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." "No," I said, stepping closer. "I made that mistake for 32 years, thinking you'd ever treat me like family." One by one, they stormed out, muttering about how ungrateful I was, how I'd burned bridges, how I'd regret this forever. The door slammed behind them, and for the first time, their absence felt like oxygen. Evelyn placed a hand on my shoulder. "They'll twist the story," she said, "but don't let them twist you." "I won't," I told her. And this time, I meant it. "I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me," Grandma Evelyn added softly. "Once I knew, I tried to get to the hospital, but you were already gone." "You did more than enough," I said. The day after the confrontation, I opened my phone and started cutting ties. I muted threads, deleted the family chat, unfollowed every account, and blocked the worst repeat offenders. It wasn't anger that drove the decision. It was clarity. I'd spent my entire life leaving the door open for people who never planned to walk through it. Closing it now felt like the first real act of control I'd taken in years. Felix noticed the change almost immediately. "You look lighter," he said one evening as we made dinner. "Like you can breathe again." "Feels like I finally stopped dragging dead weight," I admitted. He smiled. "Now you get to build something new from scratch, on your terms." His words stuck with me. That week, Felix signed me up for a personal growth group he'd heard about, a program focused on boundaries, mental health, and building purpose beyond work. I almost didn't go. The idea of sitting in a circle talking about feelings with strangers wasn't exactly appealing, but something in me knew I needed it. The first session was awkward. Half the people looked like they'd been dragged there by partners or therapists, but as the weeks went on, it became one of the best decisions I'd ever made. We talked about identity, self-worth, and what it meant to live a life that wasn't defined by other people's expectations. The group forced me to hold myself accountable too. I started rebuilding, not as a performance, but because I wanted to feel whole again. I returned to the gym for the first time in years. At first, I could barely finish a 30-minute session without feeling lightheaded, but I kept showing up. I cleaned up my diet, I started sleeping more, cutting back on caffeine, and actually leaving work at a reasonable hour. I also launched a consulting side business, something I'd always wanted to do, but never had the confidence to pursue. It started small, advising a few startups on operations and workflow. Within 3 months, it was profitable enough that I considered going full-time. For once, I was building something entirely mine. The changes rippled through every part of my life. At work, I stopped volunteering for every task. I set boundaries. If someone tried to dump extra responsibilities on me, I said no. The fear of disappointing people, the same fear that had shaped my entire life, started to fade. Felix noticed the difference too. Our relationship deepened in ways it never had before. We weren't just talking about short-term plans anymore. We were talking about marriage, about building a life together, one rooted in mutual respect, not obligation. "I used to worry about your family," Felix admitted one night as we lay in bed. "I thought they'd always have this hold over you." "They don't anymore," I said. "They don't even have a seat at the table." Meanwhile, the post Hunter had shared was still circulating. It hadn't gone viral on a global scale, but it had been picked up by a few podcasts and blogs about family dynamics and toxic relationships. A couple of local reporters reached out asking if I wanted to share my side. I declined every request. I wasn't interested in revenge or attention. I just wanted peace. Hunter kept me updated on what was happening on the other side. The family was unraveling under the pressure. My father's company had put him on temporary leave. Ethan had lost another client. Frank was furious that his social circle had turned cold. They were desperate to shift the narrative. "They offered me a trip," Hunter told me over coffee one afternoon. "All expenses paid. Said if I publicly distanced myself from you, they'd make it worth my while." I raised an eyebrow. "They're bribing you to betray me?" "Pretty much," he grinned. "Told them to shove it." "You didn't have to do that," I said quietly. "I did," he replied, "because this isn't just about you anymore. They need to learn that they don't get to control people with money or guilt." That conversation stayed with me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one trying to hold everything together. People were choosing to stand beside me, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. One evening, Felix and I sat on the balcony watching the city lights. He leaned against me, quiet for a long time before he spoke. "Do you regret any of it?" "No," I said honestly. "I regret wasting so much time trying to earn their love, but walking away? That's the best decision I've ever made." He nodded. "Then keep walking." And I did. Every workout, every client meeting, every late-night planning session for the future was a step further from the person I used to be, the woman who believed she had to prove her worth. The more I built, the more I realized that cutting ties hadn't been the end of anything. It was the beginning. The family I was born into had defined me for 32 years. Now I was defining myself. And this version of me, stronger, calmer, finally free, was someone I could be proud of. The engagement wasn't supposed to be dramatic. I had planned it quietly, a weekend trip out of town, dinner at my favorite rooftop restaurant, and a ring Felix had been saving for since the day he realized he never wanted to build a future without me. When he asked, I said yes through tears and laughter. And for the first time in years, I felt like everything in my life was finally moving in the right direction. We posted a single photo a few days later, nothing flashy, just our hands intertwined, the ring visible, captioned, "Forever starts here." Within 24 hours, the peace we built shattered. The Gill family erupted online. My mother posted a long, passive-aggressive message about betrayal and abandonment. My father wrote a vague post about daughters who forget where they came from. Ethan shared a photo of the family at a dinner without me, captioned, "Some of us know what loyalty means." At first, I ignored it. I wasn't going to let them ruin this. But then Ethan escalated. He uploaded a 5-minute video titled, "The Truth About My Sister." In it, he accused me of faking my collapse to get attention, claiming I probably just hadn't eaten enough and that the hospital visit was a publicity stunt to make the family look bad. "She's always been jealous," Ethan said into the camera, his smirk barely concealed. This was just her way of playing the victim again. The video was shared hundreds of times. Most viewers tore him apart in the comments, but a few sided with him, parroting the same narrative my family had always used. Heather's dramatic. Heather exaggerates. Heather wants attention. Uncle Frank added fuel to the fire, threatening to sue Hunter for defamation and emotional distress. He sent an email full of legal jargon, claiming the screenshots were fabricated and warning of consequences if they weren't taken down. Hunter laughed it off, but I could tell he was angry. "They're scared," he told me over the phone. "They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks." They weren't done. 3 weeks after the engagement announcement, I walked into my office lobby and found them waiting. My parents, Frank and Ethan, blocking the elevator like a pack of vultures. "This circus ends now," my father said. "Then stop performing," I said. Frank's tone went clipped. "Retract the post, public apology, and end the engagement. He's opportunistic." "He held my hand in the ER," I said. "You held a reservation." Ethan grabbed my sleeve. "You don't walk away from us." I freed my arm. "You can't be walked away from if you were never there." Frank leaned in. "Last warning. Legal options are on the table." "So are mine," I said. "Listen carefully. This is formal notice of no contact. Do not call, text, email, DM, show up at my home or office, or route messages through friends or relatives. Any attempt to contact me or Felix will be documented." My mother's voice went brittle. "We are your family." "A family shows up," I said. "A PR team spins. Choose which you are. Either way, this conversation is over." I stepped into the elevator. The doors closed on their silence. That night, Felix and I drafted a single message and sent it to every family member still trying to contact me. "This is the last message you'll ever receive from me. There will be no calls, no meetings, no apologies, no invitations. You are not part of my life, and you will not be part of my future. Do not contact me again." Then I finished it for good. I blocked every number, email, and account we had on record. No more replies, no more loopholes. The next morning, my phone was silent. No calls, no threats, no guilt trips, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm, when the sky is clear and the air feels new. For the first time, I wasn't bracing for their next move. I wasn't wondering how they'd retaliate. I had taken away their power to reach me. And with that, the last tie holding me to them snapped. They could post all the cryptic messages they wanted. They could rage, sue, or spin their lies. None of it mattered anymore, because I had finally done what I should have done years ago. Shut the door, and locked it behind me. The morning of the wedding was quiet, intentionally so. No frantic phone calls, no complicated family logistics, no guest list politics. It was exactly how Felix and I had planned it. Small, personal, and free from the noise that used to control our lives. We'd rented a small vineyard on the edge of the city. The ceremony would take place under an old oak tree that had stood there for more than a century. There weren't hundreds of guests, no extended relatives I barely knew, no faces I felt obligated to invite, just people who had chosen to be here, people who had earned their place in our story. When Felix arrived, everything else faded. He wore a simple suit, and when he smiled, it reached his eyes. There was no orchestra, no dramatic entrance, just the soft sound of the wind moving through the vines and the quiet heartbeat of something new beginning. The officiant began, and I glanced around at the faces present. There weren't many. A handful of close friends from work, a couple of people from the growth group who had become like family. Hunter stood near the front, watching with the quiet pride of someone who had chosen loyalty over blood, and Grandma Evelyn sat in the front row, her hands folded, eyes shining. They were the only family here, the only ones who had shown up. Felix reached for my hand and smiled. "This is our fresh start," he whispered. "Yeah," I whispered back. "It is." The ceremony was short. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves. Honest, simple, promises rooted not in fantasy, but in choice. When we were pronounced husband and wife, the small crowd erupted into cheers that felt more genuine than any applause I'd ever heard. At the reception, held under string lights and long wooden tables, the mood was light and warm. People laughed, clinked glasses, and shared stories. There were no awkward silences, no forced small talk, just peace. Hunter was the one to give the toast. He stood, glass in hand, and cleared his throat. "I've known Heather my whole life," he began. "And for most of it, I watched her try to be everything everyone else wanted her to be. No matter how much she gave, it was never enough. But here's the thing. Family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who shows up when you need them. And every single person at this table showed up." He raised his glass toward Felix and me. "Here's to showing up. Here's to choosing the people who choose you." We drank, and for the first time, I felt what real belonging tasted like. Across town, I knew what was happening. Screenshots Hunter had sent me earlier showed the Gill family still spiraling online. My father had posted something about daughters who destroy families. My mother shared a quote about forgiveness. Ethan uploaded a story mocking our tiny backyard wedding, calling it embarrassing. None of it mattered. Their world, built on control, image, and manipulation, was shrinking, while mine was expanding without them. Later in the evening, Felix and I slipped away from the crowd for a few minutes. We stood at the edge of the vineyard, looking out over the rows of vines lit by the fading sunset. "Do you ever think about them?" he asked quietly. "Sometimes," I admitted. "Not the way I used to. I don't wonder what they're saying or how they feel. I just wonder if they even realize what they lost." "And if they don't?" he asked. "Then they don't," I said, "and I still win." We stayed there for a while, watching the light fade. The life I had built over the past year, brick by brick, boundary by boundary, felt solid beneath my feet. I had people who answered the phone when I called, people who showed up without being asked, people who didn't need me to break myself into pieces to be worth loving. As the night wound down and the last guest left, Hunter hugged me tight. "I'm proud of you," he said. "For what?" I laughed softly. "For choosing peace over approval," he replied. "Most people never get there." Evelyn hugged me too, whispering, "Your life is yours now. Don't ever let them take it back." We drove home that night as husband and wife. The city lights passed by outside the window, and I felt a calm I hadn't known in years. This was the start of something new. Not just a marriage, but a life where I got to decide who had a seat at my table. As I lay in bed beside Felix, his hand resting over mine, the words my uncle had once thrown at me echoed in my head. "You've crossed a line." He was right. I had crossed a line. From their chaos into my peace. From their expectations into my choices. From being someone they could erase into someone they could never control again. And I was never going back.